Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Untitled Anime Show, where we review That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, and Sadar is here to tell us all about it.
Well, that time I got reincarnated as a slime began as a light novel series by Fuse beginning in 2014 and was later serialized online. The anime series premiered in 2018, and the series follows a 37-year-old man who is stabbed in a selfless act and is reincarnated into a new world. So we're talking about another isekai. He is reincarnated as a slime named Rimuru. He soon finds out that he's acquired some new skills, particularly Predator, which allows him to devour anything and mimic its appearance and skills. So Rimuru embarks on a quest to prove his worth and explore the limits of his abilities, if any exist. You can find That Time I Got reincarnated as a slime on Crunchyroll Funimation, where it is streaming and simulcast when airing live in Japan.
Yeah, and this one is an isekai. It is an overpowered main character isekai. I mean, is there really any other ones out there? I mean, come on. That being said, you would think, how many of these can there possibly be that are good? This one's pretty good, folks. So let's get right to our scores. And let's start with originality, where everyone gave this a 4 across the board. So let's start with Duck. Why'd you give this the score that you gave it?
The only thing that kept this from being a perfect score is the fact that I've encountered every single monster they talk about in a video game. And maybe that's the point, but you could have added one or two in there. The only thing they mentioned that I hadn't ever seen and I was really excited to see was the Armorsaurus, and then we never saw it. So
Well, in fairness, they kind of are building off of a fantasy world. So you're drawing characters from the typical Japanese fantasy stories. In our version of that would be like a Dungeons and Dragons type thing, where you're drawing characters from that source material. So I can see where they did that. I for originality, I gave it a 4 as well, and it was one of those deals like, well, it's an isekai, overpowered protagonist. I can't give this a perfect 5. Sadar, again with a 4. What's your deal?
I have seen a lot of isekais, and because I've seen a lot of isekais, I can't give it a perfect score because, yeah, it's a new world, it's a fantasy world, overpowered as heck. But because I've seen a lot of isekais, I can also tell you that as far as originality goes, this one is pretty darn original for that genre. So
I do
I think
like
it's a strong 4.
I do like the fact that the main character is in theory the weakest of all characters.
Hmm.
But not so much as it turns out. So moving on to the story, Sadar and Duck, you gave this a 4. Sadar, why'd you give it a 4?
Again, I think it's an incredibly strong story. I loved a lot of the world building. I think they did a fantastic job of world building in That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. I love the diversity of characters, types of characters that are in the series. And I even loved the hints at other people who have been reincarnated from Japan into this world. I just there are periods throughout the series where it kind of drags. So I couldn't give it a perfect 5 again.
Yeah, we do have some filler episodes, but in at least these filler episodes are somewhat entertaining. They're not just there. We don't have the obligatory clip episode, thank God. So Duck, you gave this a 4. Go ahead and give us your explanation.
yeah, so I feel like this is one of the most well written stories I've experienced in a long time. There was a good breakup between learning about the world and action. I never felt like I was learning too much at one time. And then they had a really good way of chaining story events together where they would leave to go solve a small problem like finding clothes for goblins. And then it would lead to, you know, furthering, like pushing the story further in, very, very unique ways. The only thing that I want to take a point off for is at the end of the story, there's a pretty slow arc, and then they end it with a flashback, and there's no real finale. Like I'm expecting some big battle at the end. I'm like, I don't know how they're going to write it in, but there's going to be a big fight here because there's been some really good fights leading up to the last episode, and then it was just a flashback, and the flashback didn't even end with a good fight. So I felt a little like wanting a little bit more. I was a little disappointed in the ending, but overall, like really good writing, and I'm excited to see what else they come up with.
You're right, and I'm actually kind of rethinking my score right now because I gave it a 5, and I'm rethinking that because you're right. That last arc was tedious. I didn't care
I think
for
it's
it.
important. I think it's
It
very
is.
important to the story. Those characters are going to come back in an important way, but it didn't compare to the rest of the series.
It didn't, and unfortunately, I gave it a 5 before I thought gave that too much of a thought process. So we're gonna go with that. But let's move on to artwork. Sadar, you gave this a 5.
I did. I loved the artwork throughout the series. I loved the way that the characters were drawn. I think that the people were beautiful. I did think that some of the female characters were a little, over sexualized for laughs. But what really pushed this over the edge for me is the way that even when Rimuru is in his human form, humanoid form, they maintain the kind of bounciness of the slime in the way that he moves.
Without
And
with,
I
it
just
doesn't
thought,
without making it look like he's liquid. I mean, it
right,
looks good.
it looks really good. I think they really put a lot of effort into drawing this anime very well.
Okay, Duck, you gave this a 4.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful fantasy world. Good mix of colors going on the screen at all times. The magic looks cool. Um, but the thing that takes away from being perfect is there are a few too many scenes in the bathhouse with the over sexualized characters. Um, that it didn't. It was there's no point in putting it in. It was just there to draw boobs.
Well, I actually gave this the worst score. I gave it a 3. I did really like the fact that it was bright. I don't like them when they're so dark that you're almost wanting to turn the brightness up on the screen so you can see what's going on. This is a very bright, vibrant world. I like it. It just seems that there's not as much detail that could have been. I'm hoping within the seasons that they're coming out with next, they are going to have that. And if we are not reviewing the OVAs as part of this, this is simply the mainline story. But if you want to talk about over sexualization, go to the OVAs because that's all it is. Um, if you want to get some Ichi action, go on over there and watch the slime OVAs. You'll really enjoy them. But yeah, it's just I think that was just they could have been a lot more detailed. Um, I didn't really care for the way they didn't accent the fight scenes as much as they could have, but that's just my taste. So moving on to depth, we got Sadar with a 3.
Yeah, I love this anime, don't get me wrong, but I didn't think that it was really that deep. I think there's a lot of focus on world building, but not on providing a whole bunch of detail. Like we've seen so much about the little computer inside of Rimuru, and we know absolutely nothing about where it came from or what its purpose is or why he can communicate with it, even though it first entered him kind of sort of before he died as a human in Tokyo.
I think
I,
it was supposed to be inferred that it was part of the reincarnation package. You know, you're gonna get that because every time it seems we have an isekai where somebody gets reincarnated, they get that one extra. You know, you're gonna have the demon sword Gram, or you're gonna have you're gonna take a goddess with you. We don't know. I think the great sage, as he calls it, is kind of like the reincarnation package. You know, I think that's pretty much what they meant by it. But you're right; they never do come out and say it.
okay, well, thanks for that explanation because I never was able to interpret what exactly was intended with that. Um, I'm looking forward to a lot more depth, I think, in future seasons as they continue to build on and expand the world that is the world around Rimuru. But I think it's getting there. It's just not there yet.
Okay, Duck, you gave this a 4.
Uh, I gave it a 5.
You gave it a 5.
Yeah.
Oh, I have your score wrong, but continue then.
So I gave it a 5. Now, I mean, it could be, give one or give or take one or the other. Um, but I really liked how we got to see the way each race lived by themselves, basically, and then um, how they get incorporated into the overall community that Rimuru is building. I really like that. And even, some of the other stuff, there's a lot of moving parts going on in other places, and we see flashes of them, but we don't, they don't get fleshed out as a whole yet. And I think that's going to build up. And it is confusing when I know there's going to be more coming if I want to take points off for unanswered questions, like that kind of thing, like what's going on with the dwarves, what's going on with the demon lords, you know. But I chose not to, take points off for unanswered questions as of yet, if that makes any sense. And I
Yeah.
don't really, there was no, I usually take points off for plot holes that bug me, and I really don't have anything like that in this particular series. So I gave it a 5.
I gave it a 3, and the reason being is there was so much that is just this is standard isekai. That's it. This is just standard isekai. There's not much more to
Okay.
that. Um, and there was a lot of depth in that we learned about how the nation of Tempest in the city of Rimuru, created by Rimuru Tempest, was created. Come on, could have gotten a little bit more original with that, but um, the overall just building of the different civilizations is really neat, and the fact that a lot of times when they do like a wide angle of the village, you can actually see the delineation between the different tribes and where they're living, which I think is kind of cool. But I just wish they would have spent less time in the brothel and more time telling you about the culture of the nation that they're within. If that makes any sense to us. So moving on to binge. We've got some pretty high scores here. Duck and Sadar, both you gave this a 5. Why don't you start us out, Sadar?
I think that you could binge very happily on That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. It's got great writing, great world building, great at building tension, but it doesn't make you hold on to that for too long as you're willing to watch a couple more episodes. It's just exciting. There's great build up to every conflict. You feel validated once you get to the conflict and see how it plays out. It's exciting. There's a lot of energy and action. It's definitely a very fun show to sit down and binge your way through.
And Duck, you're up.
Yeah, this show had some of the best cliffhangers ever. I mean, they literally say, and then like they literally say, they ask a question, and then the episode ends, and you're like, okay, well, I know if they're gonna answer it at the beginning of the next episode, so I gotta watch the next episode to figure it out, right?
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
the show flowed really well,
Hmm.
and I was always, hungry for the next bit of information to see.
And you pretty much tore right through this one, didn't you?
Yeah, I was basically watching from the time I got home from work to the time I went to bed, and I even laid in bed watching this show on a tablet, and that's something I never do. So
Outstanding. I
yeah.
gave it a 4 for bingeability. I took 1 point off just because there was the occasional filler episode that you could have cut out. But other than that, I really did enjoy this one. I did stream right through it, and I'm really looking forward to the next season. Now they've made some announcements about the next season, quote unquote, and it's actually going to be like 3 different shows running simultaneously at one point.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Especially since it's simulcast or simuldubbed.
Yeah.
Simuldubed. But yeah, they're literally talking about having like 3 different shows about the slime universe, the slime verse, I guess, that are all going to be going on pretty much at the same time, and that's going to be coming later this year. So definitely something to look forward to. But moving on to our Metascore. For that time I got reincarnated as a slime, our Metascore gives it 4 adorable little slimes out of 5. And now where we ask our panel, do you put this in your queue and watch it later? Do you watch it immediately, or do you forget it even exists? And we're going to start with Duck this week.
Watch it right now. If you're watching something else, pause that and watch this show. You will be pleasantly surprised, even though it has a weird name.
It does have a really weird and abnormously long name, and I'll be honest with you, that's part of the reason I picked it to watch, is because of the ungodly name on it. Sadar?
Oh, I agree with Doc. I mean, pause whatever you're watching, Put whatever chores you're doing aside, go binge the heck out of this show. You will not be disappointed, and you definitely want to be ready for the next season airing later this year.
Absolutely, I agree. This is one that we can all agree on that this is going to the front of your queue immediately. Sit down, binge watch that time I got reincarnated as a slime, watch the OVAs, and get yourself ready for the upcoming seasons because they're going to be great. And it's going to be one of the first ones that we're actually going to get full seasons for coming out of the global pandemic. So I'm really looking forward to seeing these ones when they come out and having a nice distraction, if nothing else. So that's going to finish us up for this week on the Untitled Anime Show. But make sure that you go back to our YouTube channel and you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and that you come back for each and every episode right here on our YouTube channel. And other than that, folks, we hope you have a delightful week, and we'll see you on the next episode.